Bismillahirrahmanirrahim wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. I'm called Brother Ali. This is called the Travelers Podcast. My guest this week is called Krizz Calico. And me and Krizz, our brotherhood, our connection, our friendship, and this conversation that you're about to hear is the reason that this podcast exists. And it's the reason that we call it the Travelers. We call it that because every one of us is a traveler in this life. And it might sound like some spiritual mumbo jumbo from some accounts that you don't follow. And I feel you. But think about it like this. All of us came into this life and we don't remember when we came in. We see other people be born, and so we assume that my birth must be like that. We hear stories about it. People that are born in these times will have even video or photos of when they were born, but none of us actually remembers it. And so we don't remember our beginning. And all of us know that our life is going to end. These are the things that we all share. There's no denying. My life is going to end at some point. I don't know when it's going to be. I don't know how it's going to happen. I just know that it's going to end. I have desires for what happens in between. I might even have fears about that stuff. But all of us know that this is my one shot at being a human being, and it's my first time doing it. And we also have this feeling that I'm sharing this life with all these people, but also I'm the only me that there's ever been, and this is my first time being me. So I got all of these things that are unique to me. And then what happens is we come across people that are absolute gifts to us because all of the really weird, unique, peculiar stuff that feels tailor-made to me, like my own weird individual challenge that I have to do solo, sometimes you find somebody that they've got a lot of that same stuff. And they have a version of it, though, that allows you to see it in somebody else and see what would it look like for somebody else to be taking this journey. And maybe they're making a lot of the same decisions. Maybe they're making alternate versions of the same decisions. And me and Krizz have that in ways that, only the author of it all could have written. What I mean by that is this. I'm an albino. Krizz Calico has vitiligo. Albino means that you have no pigment or color or melanin in your body. Vitiligo means that you have it in spots. And Krizz is a beautiful black brother that has vitiligo, and the places that it shows up are right around his eyes. So it's directly on his face. You're going to see it the second you see him, unless he's got glasses on. So when both of us, when we walk in a room, immediately, this is an issue. My skin is an issue wherever I go. There's no way around it. Along with that, because of the one of the side effects of what we both deal with is that neither one of us can see the way that people are supposed to see. And it's not like you can just get some glasses that fix it. You know what I'm saying? I have extreme light sensitivity. Also, I have low vision. Also, I don't have depth perception, like my eyes don't work together. Krizz has his own version of all of that. Also, both of us are big dudes that carry a lot of weight. We both are overweight, like heavy dudes. Also, you add to that, both of us have partners or wives that we've been with for a long time that are really like essential to our life. Anybody that knows Krizz knows his wife or knows about her. Anybody that knows me either knows my wife or has heard all about her. If you listen to this podcast, you know all kind of stuff about my wife, and you know that it's a big part of who we are. We're family people. We've got kids. And it's very important to us the way that we raise these children. We also both come from some sort of weird intersection between the hood and the suburbs, between black and white. We also are people of faith. Krizz is a Christian, I'm a Muslim, but we're both people that really deeply are believers in our faith and would love to live lives that bear witness to that. And we struggle with what that really means in the lives that we have. You add on top of that, that both of us grew up being people that have profound gifts and talents. Not only on the microphone, like not only can we have the gift to be able to perform, but also there's something about the way that we perform that connects our hearts with other people's hearts. You know, you live a life like this, and so your heart experiences a lot of pain and a lot of alienation and a lot of isolation that makes you want to connect with other people. And then we've been given this gift to be able to speak and sing and rap and talk and write about it in a way that touches other people. So we got these gifts. But then also, we both came up in a time when the music industry was never going to give a shot to somebody like us because of how we look, because of the type of music that we make. We're weirdos, we're strangers, we're outsiders, we're outliers, we're outcasts. This is who we are. Both of us never knew each other until a few years ago. We happened to cross paths. Now, add to that, that both of us had the really good blessing and fortune of meeting an independent artist that not only had a talent, but also had a type of charisma, a look, and a plan for how to make themselves and the people around them be independent juggernauts. Krizz Calico was connected with Tech N9ne, one of the biggest independent forces of nature in underground independent music. Built Strange Records, which is an empire coming out of the Midwest, the South Midwest, to my Kansas City. I, along my journey, met Slug, Atmosphere, and that crew, which ended up becoming one of the independent powerhouse juggernauts, hubs of underground independent in the northern Midwest, in Minneapolis, both around the same time. Add to that that we both grew in this system. We were fed by these cocoons, by these families, by these systems that supported us, that gave us the courage, the confidence, the know-how, the example, the training, the teaching to be able to bear that out and to make it real. And then we also brought a level of meaning and depth and dynamics to those organizations and to those families. So you got Tech N9ne very strong, you got Slug and Atmosphere very strong. Me and Krizz also bring something else to that element where we're not the obvious frontmen that these guys are, but we bring something to the table that deeply enriches what those labels bring to the world. And we become part of the identity of those systems. And then add to that that both of us, without ever talking about this, both around the time of the pandemic, after wrestling with it for a long time, realized that much like a child grows up in their family and they love their family, you get to a point where it's like, man, I'm starting to realize that I have a vision for myself and I need to step out on my own. It's time for me to go form my own life, my own home, to build my own platform for the way that this looks for me. So there's a type of, breaking out of that to some people can look like leaving, but it's not necessarily leaving. It's really just a graduation. Krizz and I both did that. Krizz moved into his own label called Earhouse Records, and I moved into my own thing. We both stepped out on our own, again, without talking about it, without planning it together. At some point, I just realized, I don't think Krizz Calico's on Strange Records anymore. You know what I'm saying? And he started realizing, I don't think Brother Ali is doing his new stuff at Rhymesayers. And so this connection between us, it has to have been written by the author of it all. There's just way too much in common. And for somebody that has the unique, really, different, peculiar walk that each of us have in life, to be able to see somebody else navigating it in their own way, where we overlap in so many aspects of it, and then there are so many aspects of it that are different. And so for us, this conversation that you're about to hear is really a gift. The Travelers Podcast is sponsored by Zakat Foundation and also by BetterHelp online therapy platform. Man, dig in and enjoy this episode of the Travelers Podcast.
What's up, guys, on Twitch? You already see who it is, man. I told you I had a special guest today, and I'm on his show. I'm making an introduction on his show, on my show. We kind of blended the shows together. That's what it is, man. But welcome, guys, to the Krizz Calico Twitch channel. I see some of you guys are new, but I got Brother Ali. He actually has me on his show, but I'm still introducing him, so it doesn't matter. I got Brother Ali joining us for Twitch today, man. The amazing Brother Ali, man. And we have been trying to have this kind of conversation for a long, long time. So here we are today, man. And boom, there he is.
Yeah, man. It's a beautiful thing. Peace to everybody on your Twitch. You know what I'm saying? All the people out there. Man, it's crazy that and it's really fitting to me that we're doing this in this way, because
Why?
the I remember when I came across y'all for the first time, when I realized that this thing existed called strange music and the universe that you live in, you know what I'm
Yep.
saying? Or that you come from. And it was really
Right.
like realizing that, you know what I'm saying? It's almost like when you see in the comic books where there's a multiverse and there's an alternate universe. And in that universe, so there's like one guy is Spider-Man and they realize, like, oh, in that universe, there's a whole other Spider-Man. You know what I'm saying? So
Hello.
for me, it was like realizing that there's this whole other universe that reminds me of Rhyme Sayers. And in that thing, Travis is the Sadiq and Tech N9ne is the Slug. And I'm like,
Yep.
yo, I'm the Chris Calico in this universe, and he's the Brother
Right.
Ali in that universe. And so I think the most
Exactly.
important part is like, are we separated at birth, or do you have like the other side of this, like a locket? Like, is there a locket we both have the same? You know what I'm
I
saying?
know, dude. And the fact that you are albino and I have vitiligo, which is basically which if you guys have been following me, it's a very similar thing where
Yeah.
there's no pigment with an albino person, and then I just have I used to say partial pigment, but I'm mostly brown, but and mine has closed in over the years, but it gives us very similar things, which I've been excited. We've talked about this, dude, in person about what it does to our vision and everything else. You know what I mean? And so, um, even though we've had conversations, I feel like I've been waiting to have this type of conversation with you for like years, man. Kel, the slacker on my side, says "Tightrope" is my favorite song.
Dope. That's a beautiful thing. Yeah, so I mean that's the first and I think the most obvious thing that we have in common. And I know
Yep.
for me, just like you said, like vitiligo is almost like spots of contained albinism. You
It
know what I'm saying?
is.
So you have like the spots where you don't have the normal, like the color, the pigment, the melanin that you normally would have. And then for me, it's just none. Most albinos actually have like little, I had one taken off my head, but we have little spots of pigment sometimes that'll be like
Yeah.
a mole. And
Okay.
I had one on my head. I got a scar here now, but it was like getting big, so I had it taken off. But I know for me what that meant, that I basically had to figure out how to navigate the world looking different. My family is
Yeah.
white. I grew up when I was born, I was in Madison, Wisconsin, and from touring there, like what that place, it's like Leave It to Beaver white. And so there wasn't a whole lot of understanding. Like white folks don't really understand albinism. For white
Right.
folks, albinism is this really kind of, but black folks really do. Like black people
Yeah.
understand albinism all over the world. Like I could be traveling in Australia, I'll see an African man and he'll come and like greet me and ask me if I'm okay and make sure that I have what I need and all of this stuff. So for me, it really it was a lot of me finding my heart home in another community from the time I was a
Right.
really little kid. But I've heard you talk about this a little bit, but I'm really curious, man. Like, what was your first understanding of yourself and your role in your family, in the world, in your neighborhood?
Um, dude, I was this. I'm trying to think. Even when I first understood that I even looked different.
Mhm.
I don't know. I can't remember the first time that I was like, "Oh, wow, I look different than everybody." I can't even remember because I don't it's just always been like that. I walk in a room and everybody's staring,
Mhm.
especially as a kid. I had a lot more vitiligo as a kid, and so I would have to say it would have to be, and I talked about this. I do this thing called Stop the World, and it's a speaker or keynote concert where I speak and I talk. I'll
Yeah.
show you a little bit of it actually today, but I go out and it's like a three-part thing that I do, and it's part documentary, it's part keynote speaking about mental health, and then it's part concert. And so I intertwine these things, I even talk over music. Like I scored my keynote speaking. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Because I looked at movies and I was like, man, it's a lot. I noticed that movies are a lot more emotional when you
Yeah.
speak or when they talk over the music. If they say, John, I don't love you anymore. But if you hear, and
Yeah,
John,
man.
then it's like more emotional. So I do this thing where I mix all that together. And the point I'm getting to is that I talk about this in that it's called Stop the World. And I talk about the first time I remember it because I just had to think about that. And that made me remember that in kindergarten, there was this kid named Tommy Ainsworth, white kid. And he teased me about my face. And I thought, wow, what's so different about my face? Because nobody else said anything. Of course, I looked in the mirror and I was like, wow, this looks different. But nobody ever said anything until this kid decided that because of how I looked, he was just going to grab back then, you put the chairs on the desk. These kids are lazy as hell now. But you put the chairs on the desk. You put the
Right.
chairs on the desk and,
Right.
at the end of the night so the janitor could sweep up the classroom. And so he grabbed a chair
Upside
off
down
the
with the
desk,
with the with
up
the legs
with
up.
the legs up, yeah. And so this kid decided that he was gonna grab a chair and bust me in the face with it
Mm-mm.
and broke my 2 front teeth out.
Mm.
And that is when I realized that I looked way different, and it plagued me my whole childhood that I looked
Mhm.
so different. And then kids would really tease me in the neighborhood, and my sister had to take up for me for bullies teasing me, and they called me all these different names, man, zebra and black and white TV. And this girl, I hated going to even middle school because this girl called me Spot. She used to call me Spot. And then I was a fat kid on top of that. So it was like,
Yep.
man, I was like, dude, where is where's my refuge? You know what I'm saying? And so I went, it made me, let's fast forward. It made me, everything I went through made me a much more compassionate adult
Yes.
because
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
bullied
yeah.
all the way through high school, from
Uh-huh.
preschool to high school. You know what I mean? And so I was scared. My mother's always been a pretty scared, timid person. It caused me to be a pretty scared, timid person. And then all through high school, well, I was probably saying to my freshman year of high school, my dad died when I was 15. And I
Mm.
realized my sister wasn't in the school. Me and my sister and I are 4 years apart. She was gone out of school because she was my protector. And then my father was, hey, you got to be strong and da 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 da. So now my sister's gone off to college and my dad has passed away,
Mm, mm,
and
mm,
who
mm.
do I have?
Right.
So now I gotta go, oh my gosh, I'm left. My mother's scared, so and there's nobody to make me tough. Well, also that same year that my father died, my sister got in this bad car wreck with a drunk driver, and she had her boyfriend's mother and brother in the car with her, and they were both killed. And so this joined her boyfriend and I together, and we became brothers, and he taught me how to fight. And then I
Aha.
decided that no one would ever do this to me again. Also, during all of the time I skipped past this, I had a stepfather that was molesting me as well during
Mhm.
that time. And so all of this, man, by the time I get 15 and I meet Joe, which is her sister's boyfriend, we were joined together by this tragedy.
Yeah.
And he taught me how to fight, and I decided no one would ever do anything to me ever again. And so I decided, like, I'm going to fight everybody that gives me any problems. Now I didn't fight everybody, but I definitely turned the corner and became this dude that didn't take stuff from people. Then as I got
Right.
into my even early adult life, I realized that I was going too far with it because now
Right.
I'm in shootout. Well, now I'm in shootouts. I'm affiliated with a gang, you know what I'm saying, at this point, you know what I mean? I'm affiliated even through music too, you know what I mean? And so I realized that I had this super diverse background and that it made a very interesting story for me to write music from.
Yeah.
It gave me a very different, interesting perspective to write music from. So I wrote all of my music because this gave me mental health issues. And
Yes,
so
sir.
I started writing about it. I write a song like, man, I'm having so many anxiety attacks. I need to just write about it. Tech was the one that was like, dude, write about all of that. Cause I wanted to write
Mhm.
big club bangers. I always want to write club hits.
Mhm.
And Tech was like, "Nah, man, write about your life, dude. That's what I do." And so I started writing my life, anxiety, which is one of my
Yes,
bigger
sir.
songs. Started writing
Oh
about it.
man.
Started writing about unstable. Give me a
Man, borrowed
reason, cause I can
time.
stop it. Yeah,
Wait.
yeah. You know what I mean? The way, like all of these songs are me crying out. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And it's all I gave you the shortest version I could of my life. So it was all of that wrapped up into one and wrapped up into this unique person who also, which is part of the story, looks different too.
Right.
That's why my name. That's why I was Chris Calico. I was trying to think of all these different names. Weirdly enough, man, I had this list of names that Icy Rock, DJ Icy Rock, who put me and Tech together. I gave him a list of names. What do you think, man? I had Chameleonaire. Chameleonaire wasn't out yet either.
Crazy.
I want to name myself like Chameleonaire, like I change colors, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm two different colors. So I want to
Right,
call
right,
myself,
right.
and I want to be a millionaire. So it was Chameleonaire. And then it was, well, I had this other name like Caprice. What about Caprice? Because I drove a Caprice, a box Chevy back then.
Okay.
So I'm gonna call myself Big Caprice. And I was like, no, that sounds like a girl's name. And I was like, Two Tone. I had all
Two
these names, and then
tone. Yo, yo, that's such a like early 90s, you know what I'm
I
saying?
know,
Yo,
yeah,
I'm
no,
two-tone, man.
Two Tone.
Oh man, that it doesn't really get too much more Midwest hip hop than that, man.
Right, right, Two Tone. And my neighbor was like, man, you remind me when you sing of this guy named Sugar Child Robinson. So then I decided, oh, I'm gonna name myself that. And then that felt like not masculine enough to me. And so I thought, I don't know what was happening, but I saw a picture of a calico cat and I was like, oh, it's different colors. Calico. That's
Yeah.
it. And it's a gun.
Right.
And that's I can kind of get street cred and be this uh soft-sided guy as well. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, this works. So I was like, man, I'm gonna name. I told Tech when I first was doing a show with him, man, I'm gonna name myself Calico. And he already called me Big Chris.
Okay.
And so we did a show with Snoop Dogg in Kansas City. We opened up for Snoop and he was introducing, he introduced everybody on stage at that time, Grant Rice and Dino Mac and Cut Calhoun. And he was like, Big Chris, Calico. Like he forgot the other side. And I was like, oh, damn, that's the name right there.
Yeah,
Big
man.
Chris Calico. So I realized that that's who I am, man. All of that whole story I told you, like, that is who I am. And I am really a servant to this planet. That's what God
Yes,
made
sir.
me. I'm a servant
That's right.
to the planet, dog. You know what I mean? I know that's my job is to help people. And I realized it because people kept coming up to me and saying, um, dude, I was gonna commit suicide.
That's
And
right.
I
Yeah.
was listening to your music. And I
Hmm.
realized then that, plus how my heart is and how I'm an empath and all of these
Hmm.
things, I was like, dang, I'm supposed to help folks. And so that's what I do with my music, and that's what I do with my keynote speaking even now too.
Man, there's not a single part of your story that I don't see myself in exactly, or like I said, just the alternate universe version of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like for me, I never did the club bangers thing, but I was doing like the battle rap. My version of that is battle rap. I wanted to do the battle rap thing. But it's a very similar idea where it's like this is a world where I can assert myself, where I can be accepted, where like if
Yeah.
you're the man in the club or the man in the battle rap cipher, it's a very similar kind of idea where like
Yeah.
no one can deny that I'm valuable and I belong here. I make it so completely undeniable that I'm here and I belong and I'm somebody in this thing. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then from meetings and talking to Slug and talking to Ant, they were the ones that really made me realize like, yeah, you're great at that. That's fine. And yeah, somebody will want to listen to that and that's great. It's dope. But man, you start telling these stories from your life and it's going to be a problem.
Do you know what my first memory of you is that you don't know?
Oh man.
Is that
Oh no.
this is kind of wild. It's kind of wild. Is Tech, we did a show in Lawrence, and Rakim, I want to say,
Yes.
didn't want to go on before us. And he really, I was really let down by it, man, because I always been an Eric B and Rakim fan. You know what I'm saying? I even used to tell girls, I never told my wife this. I used to tell girls that my name is Rakim. Because I love that name so much. And once I
Mhm.
learned what it meant, I even loved it even more. So fast forward to I'm with Tech N9ne. We're about to perform in Lawrence at Liberty Hall, Liberty Theater, whatever it's called. And Rakim
Mhm.
said he didn't want to go on before us because he didn't understand the pull that Tech had in this area because it's
Yeah.
30 miles from Kansas City. And to our understanding, it was really ugly story. Well, I think we were at Rock the Bells or one of those festivals. Is the first time I remember seeing you, and you were talking to Tech about this,
Mhm.
and I didn't know what was going on. And OG Muggs was standing there. I could tell by his posture that it was a problem,
Yeah.
and so I came around the back of you because I thought you were tripping and I was getting ready to swing on you.
Mhm.
You don't even know this. And I was
Mhm.
looking like, okay, I'm gonna have, but because God has given me a spirit of discernment that I didn't know then even, I realized that I can feel people's energy. And especially I'm super, I've call myself super vigilant. And I
Mhm.
could see by your posture, your body language was peaceful and your
Mhm.
energy was peaceful. And I was thinking in my head, what am I doing? And I just decided that I was going to observe instead because I thought it was a super problem. And I heard you mentioning Rakim, and I was like,
Mhm.
"You're like, nah, man, but he's the God, and he took it in a certain kind of way or whatever. I don't really know. I didn't. I got the feeling that he didn't like that or whatever. And so Tech was a big fan too. He talked about how let
Yeah.
down he was that day, how he shoveled snow to get money to get tickets to get money to buy tickets to go to Eric B. and Rakim show when he was a kid.
Yeah.
I couldn't even believe he shoveled snow because that boy ain't never did manual labor in his life. So I was like, boy, when did you shovel snow? You got soft lady hands. You ain't
Uh,
shovel no damn snow. But anyway,
uh,
so I saw that man, but I was like, oh, this dude comes in peace. And I could still see Muggs how he was looking because
yeah.
he's super turned up because he come from the background he comes from.
Right.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
And so I was like, nah, he ain't tripping. And I tapped Muggs' arm like as if to say, hey man, he ain't tripping. You know what I'm saying? And I sat there and observed your conversation with Tech. And then when they walked off, I don't know if you remember this, but they walked off because Muggs would get Tech and get out of sight. I stayed there and talked to you for a minute.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
every time I saw you, we kept bumping into each other at various festivals at Soundset, Rock the Bells. What's the festival that Pay Dues?
Pay
Like I
dues,
think it was
Mercer's
Pay Dues.
Festival.
Like I kept seeing you at all these festivals, and I could tell we just had very kindred spirits. And so it's always been this weird thing, even though we haven't talked a lot, I always
Mhm.
felt a super strong connection to you, brother. And like it
Absolutely.
was, you know what I mean? And I was like, I don't know what it is, man, but I feel a real big connection with Brother Ali. And I've told people that ever since.
Yeah, man. That's it's a beautiful story and it's also amazing from my side. And we've never talked about this, but from my
Mm.
side, in 2007 and 8, I toured with Rakim for a full year. And he was really like a mentor to me. And that's right when it was my second album, but it was the first one that actually had distribution. And so that was
Mhm.
the time when the blogs were really big. And Rakim was really like vouching for me. And that's not something that he historically has done. You can't really
Huh.
say Rakim put this guy on and this guy on, but like he was going on the record with Nah Right and all that stuff and saying, Brother Ali is, like really giving me a lot of good. And so on that tour in particular, it was me, Ghostface, and Rakim, and we had this big
Okay.
band, and we had a show booked in Lawrence that was a big because like that ticket was a big like the promoters had to spend a lot of money to get that ticket, so they did it,
Right.
but the tickets weren't selling. And we kept hearing about this throughout the whole tour. The Lawrence tickets aren't selling. They might cancel the show. Like we just knew that going into the tour. And I had been to Lawrence, and I was already well aware of y'all, but we hadn't met yet. And
Right.
so then the promoter said, "Well, we're going to propose." The promoter said, "If we add Tech N9ne to this show, it'll help." And so they were like, yeah, add whoever you want. In their mind, they didn't know y'all. So they're like, yeah, they want to add a local artist. Apparently he's the hometown favorite. Yeah, add him. So they added y'all, and it sold out overnight. Of course, it probably sold out in
Yeah.
10 minutes, but we didn't hear
Yeah.
about it till the next day. Now it's sold out. It went from, it was at that spot in Lawrence. What's the name of that theater?
The Granada?
Yeah,
Oh, it wasn't
the
at the Granada. It was it was Liberty, because that was my first time playing at Liberty Hall. I had never even heard of that. But it sold. I know that we would sell 1,000 tickets in that city every time.
Yeah.
So
we went from we went from 200 tickets to sold out by the next time we got an update. And I knew that was going to happen. You know what I'm saying? Because I knew that whole workings of how that stuff worked. And so the promoter came back and said, we sold out the show, but here's what we want to do. Tech N9ne is actually going to be the headliner because he's the one that sold out the show. He has a full set. There's a whole thing. And so Rakim was just like, I can't open for somebody I don't know. Like, he's like, the thing that I have is that I am the God MC. I can't open for people I don't know. If I start opening for people I've never heard of, then I just can't do that. So I asked him, because I was like his, not protege, but he was my mentor. I was on that tour because he gave me the thumbs up. And so I asked him, do you want me to sit it out too? I was actually riding on his bus. And he was like, no, you should go. And so I rode on Ghostface's bus that day, and he said, try to get Tech N9ne's attention and tell him it's all love. This is not a disrespect thing. He's like, I'm not even going to go to the city. He's like, but just try to let him know that this is an important thing for me. I wish him the best. I'm sure it's great. So I went to the show with that in mind. And so then on the flip side, they brought me downstairs because Tech was doing the meet and greet. And he had the lights on, he had glasses on, he's in full Tech N9ne mode, he's posing with people, and I'm sizzling. He's in Tech N9ne mode. Like, he's not the guy. He's the on stage Tech N9ne. And this is 2008. So like, he's not the like mellowed out dude that he is now. He's like in full swing. So they step to him and they say, hey, the opener wants to meet you. They didn't say this is one of the guys on the tour, this is Rakim's whatever. They just said, I heard him say it. The opener wants to meet you. So he's like, okay, cool. So I walk over and he's like, what's going on, man? Yeah, cool. All right, hope it goes good for you tonight, man. And that's it. Never took the glasses off, never really made eye contact. It's not his fault. He doesn't, just like Rakim doesn't know who Tech is, Tech doesn't know who I am. So I'm like, man, I'm not going to be able to talk to this dude. You know what I mean? And I mentioned it to a few stagehands and stuff. And I was like, hey, tell him I have a message from Rakim. It just never happened. So then Merce invites us all to pay. I think that was at Paid Dues. So Merce invites us to Paid Dues. And Merce by this time was signed to Strange, and he had heard that Tech had a song where he talked about the Rakim thing. So Merce knows that me and Rakim are close. So Merce hits me and he's like, Tech N9ne has a diss song about Rakim. Now I've heard it. It's not really a diss song.
It's not. It's not. He mentioned it in there.
But I think what he's saying is, this is how it's going to be perceived. Again, that's the time of the blogs. It's going to be perceived like a diss song. So I'm like, okay, let me finish what my assignment from the first time. Can I get with Tech? So I saw y'all. I stepped to Tech, and I'm like, hey, that day, but because by now Tech knows who I am. So I'm like, hey, that day what I was supposed to do is connect with you. And I'm like, you probably don't remember we met that day. And he's like, dude, I have no recollection of that. I was probably already in the whatever. I'm like, yeah, man.
Well, he was getting, the thing is, man, he was just getting super high back then. He was drunk every day. He was getting super high on ecstasy and stuff back then. So that's why he didn't recollect. So I was like, man, and we had a beautiful conversation. And I was like, man, so the song wasn't out yet. And so I said, if I can get you on the phone, and I called Rakim like 4 times and he never answers his phone. And I'm calling him, like, please pick the phone up. And he didn't. Right.
And I'm like, if I can put you on the phone with him and you hear his energy, you hear his spirit, is it possible to remove that song from the project? And he was like, I don't know about that, but I would love to talk to him. So I think I connected Rakim's manager with Travis. I don't know if they talked or not. So then
they never did.
I spent a whole weekend in LA. I'm chilling. I went to a bunch of different places. I don't, but I'm just walking around LA, like no big deal. I get back and I got a call from Rakim's bodyguard. And he's like, yo, did you know that there was, you had problems in LA that you didn't even know about?
Yeah.
He's like, man, people wanted to touch you when you were in LA. And I guess, I think maybe somebody called Bumpy Knuckles. And then
Yep.
Bumpy Knuckles called Rakim's bodyguard, Big Moo. And Big Moo was
Yep.
like, I promise you, Brother Ali was not fronting on Tech N9ne. I promise you he had a
Yeah.
Farrakhan intention. He's trying to make peace between these guys. I mean, I ended up walking around. So not only did I not know that you were standing behind me about to snuff me,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But man, I'm walking around LA with like, with a green light. Had no
Yeah,
clue.
you ain't know. And I didn't know you had a green light on you either. I do know this, that, I was always close to security and everything, you know what I mean? Including with Freddie Fox with Bumpy Knuckles.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever he was around. And so we had this came up in conversation, and Tech's a peaceful dude too. So when this comes up, I was like, oh man, we had we didn't have an argument, but me and security, we had like a little argument about, like a debate about this. I was like, hey man, I'm telling you right now, man, that dude ain't mean nothing. He didn't mean nothing like that.
Man.
And they were like, no,
Well,
man, but dude, I said, nah, man, I came up from behind, dude. I was already on him. Like, oh, if it was a problem, like I'm not a dude that's just stealing on people. I'm just like, if it looks like any aggression's gearing to come towards Tech,
just
I
cut it off
always
at the head.
been my role as Strange, man, was always not only just writing all the hooks and stuff, but I was also everybody's dad. So I would calm all the situations down, but if it was on, then I was the first one swinging. You know what I'm saying? And so I assessed the situation and I knew what it was. And so even after that, I'm like, dude, it ain't like that. I was like, dude, ain't tripping like that, man. I was like, that dude is a peaceful guy. And we had like a debate. They was like, no, man, but I said, man, here's where it all went wrong in the first place. By the time the message got to us, it didn't come across like Rakim was a humble dude. None of that. It was like,
Right.
he ain't going on before no Tech N9ne. It was basically like, F us, F Tech and that's how it was delivered by the promoter or whoever delivered the initial message. And so back then you talking about, dude, this is 04? I mean, like 04, 03, 05, something like that. You know what I mean? This is a long time ago. And so, at that time, we hearing that and we all riding, especially because Tech at that point, I've been with Tech about 3 years, 4 years, maybe 5. And we're a lot younger for one. And this man gave me such an opportunity in life that I'm riding.
Right.
I'm riding for
Yeah.
everything anybody says. Like, I'm trying to actually calm it down if I can, because I still was a sensible person. But I'm like, I'm riding. So they were like, yeah, man, Rakim said this. Then I hear it, even the message, like third-hand information, Rakim's tripping. And that's how the grapevine works. That's how rumors work. And the stupid thing about rumors, for all of you listeners, is that can get somebody killed.
Yeah.
And conversation rules the nation. Conversation rules the nation. And so that's all you were trying to do, is have a conversation about it. But everybody was so protective of Tech that it's like, well, let's just turn it up instead of trying to keep it, because still trying to keep it down. And the stupid thing about it is, man, when you keep the beefs down, you can keep the money going. Right. You keep shows going, you keep all of these things going if you can keep problems and drama down, but nobody's thinking like that. At that point, everybody's girls and liquor and drugs and fights, and you know what I'm saying? It's so weird, and it's such a blessing to be able to get to this point in life and to be able to have this conversation. This is like so interesting. And I'm sure everybody that's listening is like, what? Because nobody knew that. Nobody knew any of this, because we never talked about this kind of stuff in music. You know what I mean? Because I always feel like if I really have a problem with somebody, I don't make songs about them. It's a problem.
Right.
And you know what I mean? So it was a short-lived problem, but we talked about this and even after it came up again, I was like, are we still talking about this dumb shit? Like, why are we talking about this? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, why are we even speaking about this still, man? Like, this isn't a thing. So by the time we see you again, of course, it's no big deal, and it's all smiles and laugh. By the time we saw you again was another festival, I know. And it was like, hey, there's Brother Ali. And we all come over. But I especially, because like I said, I felt a connection. Even then,
Yeah,
I'm like, hey, what's
yes.
up, bro? And then we start talking. I saw you was with your wife and kids. And
Yeah.
I was like, that's how I live too. That was
Mm-hmm.
another kindred spirit moment. Cause I'm like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you see me out not on the road or even sometimes on the road. We couldn't have our families with us. But you would see me with my wife and my son, and I got two of them
Absolutely.
now, and that's how I rock. And so the connection is just stronger and stronger, man. I'm just so super thankful that we have both been able to make it to this point in life and even be able to have this kind of conversation. You know what I mean?
And I'm grateful that you. I mean, I fully understand writing for your, for your family and for your squad and for your team, and I'm also
Yeah.
really, really grateful that you saw it in that moment.
Hmm.
Saw what my intention actually was because I went there by myself. I intentionally was like, I think Brendan, the producer of the podcast, was with me, and I was like, don't. And I had some people with me, and I was like, I'm gonna go speak to him by myself. I don't want to go over there deep. You know what I mean? I came by myself,
Nah, because that's gonna
but
be inflammatory.
I'm so grateful, man, that you picked up on that and that you said something in the moment, and
Yeah.
also as time went on, because I mean, that could have been a bad thing. And I mean, those are the types of sad stories that we hear all the time, where it's like somebody gets caught up in the middle of something, they're trying to make peace. I mean, that's how Scott LaRock died.
Yep. A lot of people with around us.
Hmm.
Weirdly enough, where I came from, my background wasn't even that. I've had like you heard about the diverse background, but it's even more diverse than I explained earlier because also I was out the church.
Hmm.
All of that time before I even met Tech. Matter of fact, when I met Tech, dude, I was doing gospel theater like Tyler Perry plays. As a matter of fact, I was in a play that Tyler Perry picked up, but he didn't ever put it out called "Where's Your Faith." I was
Dope,
doing like Christian musicals, you know what I'm saying, in
dope,
theater.
dope, 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 dope.
And I was in the street. And
Yeah.
I was doing that, and I was in the street. Like I came from right before I did that theater, you know what I mean? Because I've been in and out of church. Dude, I tried to sell drugs. I used to
Hmm.
do bootleg CDs. I bootlegged the R. Kelly video. I was dumping the R. Kelly video in Kansas City,
Mm.
the sex tape. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Like I was just always trying to hustle and do stuff. One of the first meetings I had with Tech was I sold him some weed. He was of course with DJ Icy Rock where I came from, and he'd be over there and he wanted weed and I had CDs, weed and candy. I mean, I had all kind of stuff and I was like, "Oh, well, I'll sell you this." He was like, "People give me weed." I was like, "I don't. I don't give you weed, dude. I sell weed. I got put gas in my car, dude. I still live with my mom at the time, but I'm like, dude, I got bills to pay, bro." And so I was hustling. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
So it's weird. I was part of so much different diversity. Dude, I went to college. I mean, everything. I was in the streets, college, so dope. Sex, sex tape, music. I was doing everything
Just
to try to
whatever, man.
survive.
You ready
It
to
was
get this
just to
church up? Whatever, man. You ready to get this
yeah,
weed
just as
off?
yeah,
Whatever, man.
that's it. So, but then I would get pull that feel that tug on me, man, and I would go back into church, of course, and really concentrate there on my spirituality. And so I was doing music. I decided that music was where I wanted to go. And so I started doing theater and I thought this play was going to take off and it really didn't take off. And I was still selling CDs at work. I worked at what's now AT&T. I mean T-Mobile. I worked at
Mm.
it was called Voice Stream back in the day. So I worked at Voice Stream in Kansas City, and that's where I got most of my CDs and weed and everything else off because everybody got paid on Fridays, and I showed up with a duffel bag full of stuff because I was going to get my paycheck and everybody else's too. You know
Mm.
what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I showed up doing that, and then Tech came back to Kansas City, started working with Icy Rock, and I was always over the rocks. And so me and Tech joined forces back then. I paid him to get on the song, and he had just met Travis, and they were starting Strange Music, and they went out and did like one show without me. And then I did a song with Tech. We did more songs, and then everything else went by the wayside, and boom, Strange Music was it for the last 20 years. And then here we are.
We're very grateful on the Travelers Podcast to have been supported and in partnership from day one with the Zakat Foundation. Z-A-K-A-T is the element of the Islamic tradition that deals with sharing, with giving back, with investing in the communal and global dignity of all human beings, with that really beautiful opportunity to share what we have, to be grateful and acknowledge the gratitude that we have, that no matter how little I have, no matter how many people I can point to and say, that person has more than me, that person has more than me, there's always somebody that has less. And so that creates this really beautiful opportunity for me to share with them and to express my gratitude for what I have been given and to really make good on the bonds of humanity between people. That's what Zakat is about. And I mean, that is something that exists in all communities, in all cultures, in all traditions. In Islam, it's called Zakat. So Zakat Foundation operates all over the world. It's a Muslim-led organization, but they don't only help Muslims. They don't use their work to try to convert people. It's just really a beautiful network of folks around the globe that are helping human beings wherever they need it. Go to Zakat US on social media, Z-A-K-A-T-U-S on social media. You'll be able to see all the dope stuff that they do. They've got a campaign right now where my man Preacher Moss is talking to different community leaders, including Maymay Ali, Miriam Ali, Muhammad Ali's daughter, who's also part of Zakat Foundation. She's talking about what her father, the great Muhammad Ali, instilled in her with regard to sharing and giving and donating. And it's really, really beautiful work. Go to Zakat US on social media or their website, zakatfoundation.org, and find a way to get down with what they're doing. You don't have to be Muslim. You don't have to belong to any particular wisdom tradition to know that we are given a great gift when we're able to share with other people. So very grateful to be rocking with Zakat Foundation. Most amazing artists, in order for them to become who they are, there's some sort of creative marriage that they have to find. You know what I'm saying? Like you think about like, who would Prodigy be if he never met Havoc? You know what I mean? What would KRS-One be if he never met Scott LaRock? What would Snoop be if he wasn't connected through Warren G and Dre? What would, and vice versa. Like, for me, it really was meeting Slug, but really, and then connecting with Ant. Like having Slug as a inspiration and a role model, and then connecting with Ant that really like helped me become who I am in the music. But I just wonder, like, I feel like for both you and Tech, like to have connected, and I mean, even for your names to be so closely related, you know what I mean? Like the names even fit. There's something about there was like a Chuck D, Flavor Flav kind of vibe and way that you all play
100.
off each other. And I mean, it just has to have been written by God that this musical marriage became what it is. How soon did you all realize that? Was it on that second show that you're talking about?
The first show that I did with him, we realized it right then. So Juneteenth is the show in Kansas City, the Juneteenth celebration. And,
I used to perform every year at Juneteenth.
Yeah, Juneteenth, dude. Everybody, you could get it. You could get a show at Juneteenth. If you couldn't perform anywhere else, you could perform on
Hell
on
yeah,
Juneteenth.
yeah.
And
the
so
Sheikies on the whole joint.
Yeah, dude. So he asked me to do a song. So I would at first be helping his singers. He had girl singers. The guy singer that he had, I don't know where he went. His name's Paul Law. He I don't know. I didn't see him around much anymore. And Tech was working with Icy Rock again, and they would have these girls come over, and they would, not be, they wouldn't understand what he was trying to get them to do because he's not speaking like singer lingo to them and then
Right.
they're not getting it. And, so I was always just there at Rock's house. And, Tech asked me to help the singers get on pitch and, maybe even what should I say then? Because I just started writing songs around that time. And so I would help. He had a girl named Big Sonia that was over there working, and then these other two girls that he had, and they were around, but I didn't know like who was smashing who or what was happening. And
Mhm.
so he had this song called Who You Come to See. And he was like, tell me about this verse. He had his verses done and he played it for me. And it was these girls, and they had a really churchy vibrato. He had two versions. The first version was him singing, "Tell them who you came to see," and he was like, "Tech N9ne." It was all off key, "Nine, Tech N9ne," and I was like, everybody that we got a saying in Kansas City called like brown nosing or being too
Mhm.
agreeable. It's called jeffing. And so
Okay.
everybody's jeffing with him when we're over at Rock's house. They call it the Rock Pit. It'd be all kind of girls and all kind of just people hanging on and liquor and everything flowing over there. And so everybody's over there like jeffing with him, like, "Ooh, that's dope." And I was like, "That ain't dope to me." And everybody looked like, "How dare you say that to the Almighty?" You know what I'm saying? And I was like, "That ain't tight, dude." I was like, "That ain't good." And he's like, "Oh, yeah? Well, I got another version. Listen to this." And it was the girls on there, and they sounded super churchy. "Tell them who you came to see." Tech N9ne. I said, Tech N9ne. And I was like, swag. And he was like, "You think you can make it better?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I had no idea how I was going to make this. But he's like, "Yeah, well, if you can make it better, we're starting to record at this studio called Chapman Studios downtown Kansas City. Show up there at 2 o'clock on a Wednesday." Well, I got off work. I worked 5 a.m. to 2 at T-Mobile at the time. And I got off and I was a little bit late. And I showed up. And of course, he was super late back in those days. He'd be 2, 3 hours late. And I just remembered on my way down there that I had just done this song for Cut Calhoun. Cut was working over at Icy Rocks too at that time on his music.
Mhm.
And I actually, was exploring making beats. So I helped me and Icy Rock made this beat together called The Know How. It's a song Cut has. And I was trying to do like this George Clinton in Parliament sound and song mixed with opera because my mom was an
Mm.
opera and gospel singer.
Right.
And so I had this hook that was like, "He really speaks the know-how. Speak what I'm, where are you now?" And I was doing this whole George Clinton thing. But then the way that I said cut was like, "Cut." And then I had an octave, "Cut." And then I had like all these harmonies, "Cut, cut, 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 cut," you know? And so when I was on my way down there, I was like, "Ooh, I did Cut's thing like that, so Imma just do Tech song like that." So I went into the booth and he was like, "Tell him who you came to see. Tech N9ne, Tech N9ne. Been on TV, been on CDs. This ain't no Mr. Reed. What's my name?" He wrote that part, but I had the little Tech N9ne, Tech N9ne, Tech, 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 Tech N9ne.
Mm, mm,
And it
mm.
sounded like it just went together so great. So by the time he
Dope.
gets to the studio, I'd already recorded the hook and I would put a
So he's
bunch of
walking into
layers
like
on there.
the complete picture.
Yeah, he walks in and he was like, "I'm so nervous," because I'd never done any work with him. And he's like, "Well, let me see what you got." So Rob hits play and this thing comes on and I saw his eyes light like, "Woo! There you go, boy." And I could tell everybody that was with him that was trying to get on with him immediately hated me. I could
Mhm.
see it in their face. They did not like that. Grant, Cut, nobody liked the fact that I was this dude they didn't know, and I
Mhm.
hit a home run. Then Juneteenth comes up, and he's like, "Hey, man," he sees me over Icy Rocks. "You think you wanna, come perform the know-how with me?" I mean, not the know-how, "Who you come to see, at this festival at Juneteenth?" I was like, "Heck yeah." So I show up, they're all on stage rocking. He got, like, T Will on stage, Dino Mac on stage, Cut on stage, Grant on stage with him. So it's all these dudes. And I always been trying to think, how do I break through the noise? So I
Mhm.
saw that everybody was real cool because they all hood dudes. They real cool. And Tech had this rock energy about him. He was like crazy. And you
Right,
know what I'm
right,
saying?
right.
His hair looked wild and all of it. It wasn't red or nothing yet, but his hair looked kind of wild. Cuts that I see happening now that he was wearing way back then, shaved on the sides, long on the top, hanging over. And he always had this, what, black folks call good hair. He had
Mhm.
this, basically it looks like he's mixed, it
It's
looks
a
like he's
wavy
mixed,
Puerto Rican looking
wavy Puerto
situation.
Rican looking hair. That's
Yeah.
exactly what it looked like.
He looks like a
So
Dominican guy.
he did. He that's what his hair looked like when he had hair. So he's up there wilding. And I'm looking like, man, when I get up there to do my part, I'm gonna go crazy like him. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? And I had seen some of the Rogue Dogs, which was the neighborhood he came from, the gang dudes that he was with. I saw them doing this thing, this dance where they was like, and then he was kind of doing it, but nobody else was. Tell him, you know what I'm saying? He was doing it like this. And so when I got up there, I came on during the hook. He rapped his verse, and then I came on at the hook. Tell him who you came to see. Tech N9ne, Tech N9ne. And I was doing it, and he looked over at me, and he joined in. Tech N9ne, Tech N9ne. You know what I mean? And we both doing it together. And
Mhm.
I could tell right then I had him. I was like, oh, we linked. And all of the other dudes, again, did not look like they were happy with it. We rock it, and then I'm supposed to jump off stage, and then he's doing his song Planet Rock. That's got the drag rap, you know what I'm saying, sample in it.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Heck, nine. I stayed on stage. I was supposed to go back off stage. The guy on the side of the stage is reaching for the mic for me to hand him, and I act like I didn't see him. And I stayed on there. You want me to jam up in a brainwave? And he's jumping, and nobody else is jumping. So he and I are jumping together. We're the only
Yeah.
ones jumping and wilding together. I stayed up there for the rest of the show
Mm.
and kicked it with him because I knew I was matching his energy and nobody else was on stage at the time.
Mhm.
After the show, everybody gets in. The Travis drove an excursion at the time, Ford Excursion. Everybody piles into this excursion, or either it was the van, one of the two. They had a van that they had done, a
Mhm.
strange music van, Tech N9ne van. Sorry, we get in the van, and I jump in there, and we both. Nobody else is breathing hard. Everybody else is kind of like talking. Yeah, man. Da 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 da. We both. And he said, "I love your energy out there, bro." And I saw Grant and Cut look at each other, rolling their eyes like. Psst. You know what I mean? And they
Mhm.
didn't like it. I don't care what they say. It's 20 years later. I don't care what version of the story they delivered. That's exactly what happened. They did not like it. And I was like, "Psst, I'm getting this. I'm going to be in this group." And I already knew it. You know what I'm saying? And so he did another show without me. They went down to Miami and did this thing called the Black Gold Festival, Black Gold Convention, something like that. And I was like, oh, yeah, we going to Black Gold. And they didn't say nothing to me, and they left and went. Tech, nobody said anything to me about the show. I was heartbroken. I was like, dang, I thought I had set this up so well. And they didn't take me. Then he had a show in Wichita, and he was like, man, we did the show down there, and they were talking about it and all of the girls and all of this other stuff. And then they were like, man, we got a show in Wichita. You got to come do this show with me, man, because it's local and it's close. And I just made sure that I just killed it. I came on at the beginning of the show, and I stayed on the whole time, and we rocked ever since then. I was on stage with him, and of course I got close to the other guys. Me and Grant and I got really close, but Grant started, kind of falling into some ways of the street. And then, it was just me, Tech, and Cut for a long time. And then, of course, Cut, went and did his own thing. And, even back then, I could see how everybody was kind of attracted to the streets, and they was having babies, and they was, or they would have and I told Tech back then, I said, no, I ain't throwing no shade at anybody, but it's going to be me and you.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's going to be the two of us because I felt like I wanted it. I wanted it more than everybody else.
Yeah.
Everybody else had other vices, and I just felt like I didn't have any vices. I only wanted to do music. So I was every time he put a beat on, I was auditioning. They used to say that to me. Why you auditioning, man? Every time he puts a beat on. Anytime he had a beat on, I was like, I got it. So if he threw this beat on a song we got called Leave Me Alone. As soon as I heard it, I heard the beat and I said, oh, I got a hook. Stay away from me. Me. Leave me alone. And I was like, oh, yeah. Yeah. And he was like, yeah. Heck yeah, dude, gonna write that. And so I would start writing just every hook. And after a while, everybody just accepted it. And then they would come to me when they did their albums. Chris, what'd you hear to this? And I just became like Nate Dogg there. You know what I
Right.
mean? And
Yeah.
eventually it was just the two of us. And of course, and now it's just him. But that's just because these are the different chapters of life. You know what I mean? But
Man, people that see what eventually became the underground independent world of Strange and Rhymesayers and Def Jux and Living Legends and Stone's Throw and Quantum and these movements that, came out, and there was a really interesting influx of like mostly white listeners. Those people they would be really surprised, I think, to see what it looked like before that. That like when
yeah,
you all started, it really, like, I always had the feeling that like these brothers are really coming from like a black underground thing that's still very connected to the street. It was like
yep,
at that time it was more like a alternative universe to like No Limit. You know what I mean? It was
yeah,
almost like a Midwest No Limit thing. Am I
yep.
right in thinking that that's what it was? And what was the energy like at that time? Like, what was it like touring in that world and being in those shows and dealing with those promoters? What were the clubs like? What was that vibe like at that time?
Well, first thing I can say is that we were doing it for free,
Mm,
and then I
mm,
remember finally being like, man, can I get like $100? Because they weren't making any money at all at first. And then they started making money. And I was like, hey, man, I'm doing this for free. I was actually doing shows and then I would go back and work at T-Mobile. I can remember us doing a show in Detroit and we made a 14-hour drive overnight so that I could make it to work.
yeah.
And because that was my only way to get paid. And then I got fired from T-Mobile and I lived off of unemployment and we were doing shows and we were starting to get popular and I was living off my unemployment. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying, from T-Mobile. Then I started, getting a few $100 a show and stuff, man. And I just remember the promoters, I didn't know at this time were super janky.
Hmm.
They were definitely janky promoters. I didn't know. I thought this was just the way that it went. And it was
Hmm.
truly just the way that it goes. But um, it was just like we were taking shows wherever we could get them,
Hmm.
wherever we could get shows. I remember performing at this place called the Set List in Warrensburg, Missouri. I felt like we came out of this closet. It was literally a closet that opened up and we would come out of there and just taking shows any and everywhere we could go.
Hmm.
We performed for 7 people in
Yeah.
San Diego. And I asked Tech, man, can we just cut the show in half? And he was like, nah, man. We perform this whole show no matter what. I don't care if
Mm,
it's 2 people out there, Chris.
mm,
We're gonna be huge. We're gonna be
hmm.
legendary. Watch how legendary you will be.
Mm,
Not just me, dude. You're gonna be legendary. So perform like it's 100,000 every single time. And I was like, all right, man. So what we did to make it even doper, we brought all 7 people up on stage and we all just
right.
performed to
Yep.
the staff of the building,
Yep.
basically,
Yeah.
and in San Diego, man. And we just took that attitude, and I adopted it from him. And that's why I felt like I had to be the best. I felt like we had to outperform everybody on the show. If we do pay dues and we see Brother Ali, Murs, I don't care if it's Method Man, Red Man, if it's whoever was on it, we were like, okay, we gotta kill it. We gotta okay, so we know what they're going. We would go watch other people's shows just to see who the hypest is, so we could be hyper than the hypest act.
Hmm.
I can remember, I think you did this show with us. We were on a show together at the Fox Theater in Boulder, Colorado one time with you.
Mm,
And maybe you didn't even know we were on the show. And I watched you. And I was like, oh, he's dope on stage, so we have to be better than him, even.
Mm.
Anybody. Whoever was performing, we were like, we went on tour with ICP, and I saw all the theatrics that they had. And so we were like, oh, we got to crush them even. And they were throwing Fago bottles, and they had 10 people on stage and dudes in wolf costumes, and they had, all kinds of stuff. And I was like, man, how do we break through the noise of people that have all of these theatrics on stage, and it's just the three of us on stage? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? What do I
If
do? What do I do that makes people go, whoa, big dude is crazy? You know what I mean? And
yeah.
so I took that attitude. I even now that I have my own show and it's me and Marcus Yates and DJ Dupe and my drummer, Quentin, I even preach that to them. Like, no, no, no. We have to be elite because I don't know any other way to do it. Even when I got COVID and I've been going through long COVID symptoms and I felt like I was about to pass out on stage, I felt like, man, I might not even be able to do that many shows because I have to perform one way. It's
Yeah.
hard. Every
Yeah.
show is crazy. Every show is like, it's my last. I really, really perform like that.
What was that turning point with ICP? Like, it really feels like, it really felt like it felt like there was a distinct difference of Strange before and after ICP. And for as much as, I think whether or not, the music touches, like the ICP music never touched me, but it was always very clear, like they're doing something that that means a lot to the people that love them. You know what I mean? So it doesn't matter
Yeah.
if it moves me or not. And so then what y'all were doing felt like, okay, what if dudes who could really beyond a shadow of a doubt spit were able to employ a similar approach like that? Was ICP as influential and Strange as it seems to me that they were, or
No.
was it just?
Well,
Mm,
I can't say no. Yes is the answer. I'm sorry. Yes, I was going to say no from a musical standpoint. No, but
not the music,
from
no.
not the music, but yes, there's going to be arguments on both sides after I say all of what I'm going to say. Yes, it was. Here's how it happened, though, because there's been these debates over the years of what happened, and this is what happened. We were performing and we were doing our shows, and we got some type of message came through Travis that we were going to play at something called the Gathering of the Juggalos, and we were like, "What is that? What's a?" We thought it was Gigolo, just like everybody else. I was like, "What are the Gigolos? This is a fan
It's gonna be a
base of
nudist
pimps."
comedy. Like, what's it?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
didn't know what it was of pimps
right.
or something. And
Yeah,
so,
you thought you
wow,
were
this
playing
is Tech Nine
the
calling me.
player convention.
This is this is Tech Nine calling me right now. That is hilarious. Hold on one second. Dude, before you say anything, I am on the air live talking about you to brother Ali right now. You on speakerphone.
Oh, salam alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam, good brother.
That's so
Yeah, for
hilarious, dude.
sure.
I'm literally telling our life story right now. I forgot where I was even at in the story. I just
Tell brother Ali I said love, man. Much love. Go ahead and finish that, man. I just want to give you a heads up.
all right, right on.
1,000.
All right, Pete. So for everybody on my TikTok channel, that's
Mhm.
like, do you still talk to Tech? There you go.
Right.
So we
There it
don't
is.
talk
That's a
as often as we
beautiful thing.
used to. We don't talk as often as we used to. And that's just because I was trying to do my own thing and really figure it out and really cut the umbilical cord and try to figure out who is Krizz Calico by himself. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And
I'm
so,
sorry. I definitely want to talk, but you were really
go
about
ahead.
to elaborate on what happened with the Juggalos
Oh,
and
ICP.
Strange.
Yes. Sorry. Yes. So they contact us and say they want us to play the Gathering of the Juggalos. We don't have any idea what's going on. By the way, Tech is already painting his face. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Tech is painting his face already. We don't even know anything about ICP. At least I didn't. Tech said, man, I heard of them, but he had been painting his face since the 90s.
That's true.
This time, this is 2003.
Mhm.
I met him in 99 and he was already painting his face years before that. 03 is when we got word of ICP. So they say they want us to come and play the Gathering. And then we didn't end up playing Gathering. I guess I guess it was happening at that time, but they wanted us to do a tour.
Mhm.
They ended up requesting that we come do this tour called the Wicked Wonka Tour in '03. And so we go to, we get on this tour. It was us, Bone Thugs and Harmony, ICP, and Cottonmouth Kings. So this is our
Crazy.
introduction to all of these guys. We are, of course, the low man on the totem pole. So we go out and we see all of these fans. I had never even seen them. We see all of these fans. They all have painted faces. The reason why they were attracted to strange music is because of the dark element. It was alternative. It was hood.
Mhm.
It was street, but it was dark.
Mhm.
And that's because Tech is a fan of scary movies.
Mhm.
And so he was putting his love of scary movie dark imagery in the album covers, and then he wore stuff that was very provocative, like a preacher's robe, and he wore that for the first time on the tour. Preacher's robe, he dyed his hair red. He had just dyed his hair red, and he's got like a cross on his face. And that was his way of being provocative, but also he was saying that, the tribal Africans would do that to ward off evil spirits. And that's what he was
Mm.
doing. But
Mm.
it was also worked in his favor because it looked crazy.
Right.
And so we go on stage with them. And of course, the first time I want to say we did play the Gathering before that. We played the Gathering. One of the things I know that happened is when we got to the Gathering, they're like, man, they throw pop. We call it pop. They throw soda onto the stage. They
And
throw
they're from Michigan. They call
ICP.
it pop too.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, we call it pop. So they throw pop on stage. They throw 2 liters. And we were like, what? How does that even make sense? The first time we get up, they throw beer cans. They throw stuff at people that they do like, throw more stuff at people that they don't like. And I was like, this is going to be wild. As soon as we get on stage, this 2-liter bottle of Fago root beer, I see it floating, but I always had hands because I played
Mhm.
sports. Soon as
Mhm.
it comes up, boom, I catch this thing and drink it and dump it on me. And the crowd
uh.
goes bananas.
Go
The
ahead,
crowd goes
man.
bananas. And so then we play the Wicked Wonka tour, and we got more associated with the Juggalos. That's how
Mm.
they found out about us. That's how we
Mhm.
found out about them. And so that's where the marriage happened, is on that tour. Also, we went to between going to Suburban Noise and seeing their operation, because we're trying to figure it out. Going to see their operation, how they did merch, and going to Psychopathic Records in Detroit and seeing how they did everything. Well, then we started bumping up the meet and greets and the merch. Everybody's not going to want me to have told the story like that. That's what I observed. I observed that we were like, oh, because that's what you do, dude. You get inspired by other labels and kind of how they're doing it. Because we just did a T-shirt or two. We had merch at the time. Don't get me wrong, but the way they were doing it, they told us how much they were making in merch and how to, and not necessarily how to do it, but what they were doing. We went to their warehouse, and then when we came back to KC, I noticed that we just bumped our merch and stuff up. I would say the meet and greets came from, we saw Cottonmouth Kings doing it. Now, in Travis's defense, maybe he saw, maybe he already had plans to do this. Maybe he already saw other groups doing meet and greets. First time I saw a merchandise warehouse was at Psychopathic.
Mm.
And then I noticed we stepped up our merch and we all of a sudden had a warehouse. That's all I know. I don't know what Travis's ideas were before that, but this is
Yeah.
what I observed. The first time I ever saw a meet and greet was Cottonmouth Kings doing a meet and greet. And then we had meet and greets after that. I feel honored to have learned that stuff from those people, from those guys. I'm
Yeah.
honored to learn what I learned from Strange Music. I feel amazed because now I do meet and greets because I learned it from Strange, who learned it from other people. You know what I mean? It's each one teach one. That's how it's supposed to go. You know what I
Right.
mean? And so both sides, I've heard arguments like, no, man, they copied. No, they didn't. We did it. This is what I saw happen. And it was
Yeah.
to me, it was fair exchange because we were an opening act and we rocked it and we made their fans want to come, I feel like we helped sell tickets too. We were low man on the totem pole, but we helped sell those tickets, and then we kicked ass so much on that stage that when we went out by ourselves, the next time on tour, the Juggalos would show up. We've done nothing but show love to the Juggalos because they showed love to us. I still do to this day. And I feel like part of that whole culture. I feel like I'm so blessed to be part of that culture, I should say. I feel so happy to be part of that whole culture, strange music, psychopathic, and suburban noise, because we're all kind of like in the same weight class back then.
So one of the things, like I definitely saw the merch step up, and yeah, no, the music is not inspired. The music was already there by them. And that's one of the things to me that I'm like, well, this is music that makes sense to me. You know what I mean? Whereas the ICP music didn't make sense to me, but what they were building. But the other part that I'm curious about is that in the world of hip hop, I mean, maybe like Wu-Tang already had this, but the Juggalos were like a nationwide, worldwide, like community, almost like a gang, almost like a, you know, it was almost like a secret society. And so then I didn't necessarily see the technicians like that until afterwards. So I wonder, was that already happening within the Strange World, or was that something else that was inspired by it or encouraged by the psychopathic world?
No, I would have to say that that's where I should say no at. I think that Strange was gathering our own fan base
Mm-hmm.
because of the music that we did, and we had our own thing, and the Juggalos were part of it. So it was like this. We were gathering. One of the things that Tech used to always say is that he wanted to get the punk rockers, and the R&B fans, and Juggalos, and this melting pot of this melting pot fan base.
Yeah.
And that's what ended up happening. So no, Strange were getting their own fans, and the Juggalos were but Juggalos were definitely part of that.
Mm-hmm.
Juggalos loved, I think they loved the dark imagery, and we were misfits. The Juggalos are misfits, man, and we were misfits. We were the misfits of the rap, of the music business, I think, especially of hip hop. Look at what we look like. I was dang near 400 pounds. Dude, this big fat guy on stage, and I dyed my hair, with a big, huge afro, big orange afro, with spots on his face, a guy in a preacher's robe with paint on his face with red hair, and then this other gangster looking dude that's got, blood flags everywhere. I mean, this is like, what am I looking at right now? And we're performing at rock festivals like this. And so we started really us playing these festivals, man, because we played that, and we played what was the first Sprite Liquid Mix? The Sprite Liquid Mix was actually the first festival we played, which was Jay-Z, 311, Hoobastank, Nappy Roots, and us. And we played that festival, so we grabbed fans then. Played the ICP festival, grabbed fans then. Played another festival and started playing Paid Dues and Rock the Bells, and we started just amassing this fan base, that we built this thing, like together. And that's what the truth is. And the Juggalos are definitely a huge part of that, man. And so, there's no argument to be had. That's what happened, and we're all part of this big community.
You're listening to the Travelers Podcast, and this whole thing is really born out of a deep desire and an attempt to connect with other people based on meaning, and ultimately connect with the source of all meaning. And this isn't just content. We don't see it that way. You've got to format it that way so that we can get it out into the world. But this isn't just content for us, and these aren't just interviews for us. This is documentation of life being lived between people. And the connection isn't just between me and the guests that I'm having, but it's also between the people who are listening and supporting and sharing and taking an active role in this program, which really is a convergence of hearts and of wills and of spirits and of hopes and desires. It really is a coming together like that. And so if you go to brotherali.com, and then we have a section called Join where you get in on the caravan. And the caravan, again, are co-travelers. There's different ways and different levels to engage. And for example, one of the things that we're doing there this week is that after the more kind of like official formatted interview that you're listening to right now between me and Krizz Calico, Krizz actually asked for his wife to come into the room just because I was expressing my appreciation for her. So she came in, Crystal came in and sat down, and the three of us just had kind of like a family talk about what it's like being families, trying to manage these businesses and trying to raise these children and have these careers, and also, navigating our mental health and our emotional health and our spiritual bonds between us as families. So there's a whole other part of this conversation that's not going to be in this podcast, but if you go to brotherali.com, go to the join section, there are different levels there that you can get down on, and you'll also be given this kind of like intimate family chat that we had all together. And more and more often we're offering these kind of additional bonus things. We have Ask Me Anything episodes. We've got content that isn't part of the episodes. You also get the episodes early. You get them without commercial breaks and without ad breaks. Also, when we offer things through Travelers Media, new music, learning series that we do, new merchandise, new events and things like that, the people that are in the caravan, they get all of them early. And the people at the top tier of the caravan are called the trailblazers. Those people actually get a lot of those things as just gifts. And also that group, the trailblazers, there's a Slack channel where we're communicating with each other 24/7. There's like a private group there where people are sharing life together and sharing life's journey together. So go to brotherali.com. There's a mailing list that you can get down with for free, and go to that section called Join and check out those different levels and those different ways to engage, because it really is the way to bring it all home and to really fortify and invest in this connection and this journey we're on together. The Travelers Podcast is sponsored this week by BetterHelp online therapy platform. And when you use our link to sign up with them, which is betterhelp.com/travelers, you're going to get a discount on your first month of therapy. And we're also going to get a commission that helps us do the work that we do here on the podcast and at Travelers Media. This show is all about, this program, this connection is all about utilizing every opportunity that we have to heal and to be whole and to become who we're supposed to be in this life. And one of the great opportunities that we have in this culture is therapy. And for a long time, people felt weird about it. It's one of the things that me and Krizz Calico really bond over, that a lot of times we feel weird about it. You don't have to be an overweight albino dude with or a cat with vitiligo, from the streets and the suburbs and dealing with all these different realities. You don't have to be in the particular situation we're in to just know that life is challenging. And for any of us to try to do it by ourselves is really difficult. And there are people who have dedicated their lives to studying not only the things that go on inside of human beings, but also ways to approach bringing out opportunities for us to heal and to become whole. BetterHelp is a network of trained mental health professionals, therapists that are licensed, that have gone through training, that have a community of accountability, that allow them to be dedicated to things like, complete privacy and ethics when it comes to working with people. And BetterHelp brings all of these people together in one online platform that allows us, people with barriers to accessing mental health, You know, whether those barriers are for people like me, I don't live in America and I don't have insurance because I'm self-employed. I run my own business. So it's not easy for me to just walk into a therapist's office or to just holler at somebody back in Minnesota where I used to live. A lot of people, their license doesn't even allow them to treat me outside the country. And so I have logistical barriers. Some of us just don't want to walk into a therapist's office. Some of us still feel weird about it. Some of us still need to be in the privacy of our own homes. Whatever your barriers are, whatever your challenges are, BetterHelp is a really good way to access therapy. It's a really good entrance point to the world of therapy. So go to BetterHelp, BETTER help, HELP.com/travelers. You start by doing a questionnaire where they just ask you to share about what is it that's bringing you here. Do you want to deal with addiction? Do you want to deal with relationship issues? Do you want to deal with depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts? What is it that's bringing you here? Whatever it is, you're not defective, you're normal. These are all things that we're all wrestling with in different ways. So whatever it is that's opening this door, it's a blessing and a gift if it actually is the catalyst for us to start dealing with and giving ourselves this space to just sit with someone who's going to be dedicated to listening and reflecting what we're sharing. So you start with that. Then you talk to them. They start asking you about, in this questionnaire, what kind of therapist do you want? Then you get to the point where you choose a therapist and you have access to their calendar and you can start texting with them right away. You can see somebody in as soon as 48 hours, like within a day, like this week, you could be on a call with your therapist. And you don't have to walk into somebody's office. You don't have to do any of that. You choose whether the camera's on or whether you're just talking on the phone. And then if at any point you feel like, all right, maybe this isn't the right connection, you just change your therapist. No questions asked, no hard feelings, nothing like that. So I learned about BetterHelp on a podcast that I was listening to, and it's been a tremendous help for me. And so we reached out to them and asked them if we could form this partnership. So go to betterhelp.com/travelers. You get a discount on your first month of mental health, of therapy, and begin this beautiful journey of healing. The first step, a lot of times, is the hardest step. So I'm telling you, go and take that first step. Hit up betterhelp.com/travelers. So many of the people that became mainstays in their own independent world, at some point, it's just like, man, we're probably never going to be accepted in the mainstream. And one of the things that we saw y'all do that most of us never really tried to do is insist on being known, insist on being respected, insist on being acknowledged. And, you know, there's like a thing where, like, when we were kids, we used to kind of clown Little Richard for being like, I am the inventor. I inspired Elvis Presley. Like, we used to laugh at him for that until you become a grown artist of your own and realize if you don't make sure that you're acknowledged, these people will pretend you don't even exist. You know what I'm saying? And there's something
we didn't have
really,
TV, you know, we didn't have TV and radio, you know what I mean? So we have to be the squeaky wheel that gets the grease, man.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, what was, you know, it felt like there was a period around that time, around 2009, 10, 11, 12, when you started seeing, you know, when you started seeing Lil Wayne mention y'all as some of his favorite artists, and when you started seeing, you know, some of the biggest artists in the world really starting to recognize.
I felt like I was like, yeah. I was thrilled, but I also felt like, yeah, it's about time. Like that's kind of how I felt. Like at that point, we've been rocking for 10 years, 11 years. And I'm like, yeah, man, it's about time. I'm surprised still when people know me. When I go to a 2 Chainz concert and I'm backstage and 2 Chainz, I was just walking and his entourage is walking by and he's like, Krizz, man, come here. Hey, y'all, this Krizz Calico, man. Y'all don't know. We start being like your favorite rappers' favorite rappers. We started noticing that celebrity rappers would show up at our shows. I can remember being on stage and looking to the side, Tech tapping me and going like this, and I'm looking to the side and Jay-Z's on the side of the stage like this, rocking. And I was like, I look over, I'm like, You know what I'm saying?
I mean, that's it. It
And
doesn't. Yeah, it really doesn't get bigger than that.
dog, Jigga's on the side of the stage rocking. Pharrell's on the side of the stage. Like when I see him backstage, like, respect, man. You guys are like the greatest entertainers. KRS-One, I come back because Tech N9ne switch off, on stage. I come back and sit down for my breather. I still got to do the words. And KRS-One walks up while I'm taking a drink of water and wiping my face and goes, "You know what to do." And I said, huh? I look up. I know that voice because I'm a huge KRS-One fan.
Oh
from
yeah,
a kid.
it's
And I
undeniable.
look to the side and he goes, "You know what to do." I said, "What'd you say, brother?" And I'll get ready to get up like, "Oh my gosh, man, what's it?" I was like, "What'd you say, brother?" And he said, "I said, you know what to do." And I took that like, oh, I get it. I know what to do on stage. He's been watching the show. And I said, "Thank you, man. I'm a huge fan, man. That means the world to me to hear you say that." After the show, he comes up to me, says, "No, I'm a fan. As a matter of fact, you got a line where you say, 'I ain't trying to be Bill Gates. I'm trying to be the one that Bill Gates hates.' That line was so hard." You know how he talked, he's so
Oh my
animated. I was
God, you
like,
got it, man.
dude, I got goosebumps right now.
Yeah.
Goosebumps up and down my body. This dude that I played Love's Gonna Get You every day as a kid. And he's telling me that, you know what I'm saying? He's telling me that, it let me know that he really did. Cause you dude, come on, you've been around a bunch of people and it's the Hollywood talk. Like, dude, I'm a big fan. Oh, I love your work. But when the dude's quoting your lyrics, when I
Album
got
cuts.
Eminem, when I got album cuts, that wasn't even a single.
That's
When
right.
I got Eminem, Tech's in an interview about Speed 'em with Sway, and Eminem's on the phone, and he said, "Yeah, man, it's crazy when you got songs with Chris Calico," is what he says to Tech. He's like, "We got songs with Chris Calico where he's saying, I chop it to him in the flip." He starts trying to rap my verse on Speed 'em. It makes me feel like, okay, I did it. I ain't made it to where I'm supposed to get to yet. As my music hasn't reached as many people as I want to. With all of that even being said, my finances haven't gotten to where I want to. It's coming. But I did feel like I had a "I made it" moment because people I looked up to me, you know what I'm saying? Were not looked up to me, but were like, they loved what I did.
Yeah.
Eminem saying like, "Man, I ain't never heard him give props to anybody's verse ever in his career." And I watched him. I ain't never heard him say, "This dude is the truth." Tech said that when he got on the phone with him, when he did his verse on Speed 'em, he called him. Their management got them on the phone together. Tech said the first thing he said to him was, he was like, "Hey man, thank you, brother. Appreciate it." He said, Eminem was like, "Yeah, it's all good, man. Hey man, who is Chris Calico?" And he was like, "Oh, that's my brother, man. He been on stage with me." He's like, "Is that the big dude that's on stage with you?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Dude, that dude is amazing." And he was like, "I ain't gonna lie, man. I kind of was like, I don't think I did bad either." I'm like, not that he was, because Tech is the biggest Chris Calico fan. But he was just like, dang, that's the first thing he said. Well, and that's always Tech's, who Tech looked up to. So for him to tell him that made me feel like confirmation that I'm doing it right. Because I second guess myself even now making songs. Every song, I'm like, is that good? Is that there? Is that? I do that with everything that I do. And so all of those things, that to finally answer your question, is confirmation that I'm doing it right.
Yeah.
I guess I'm doing it right. I think I'm doing it right. Yeah, I'm doing it right.
Yeah.
That's what that means to me,
In so many of these musical marriages that I'm talking about, there are usually two great people that are genuinely equals when it comes to what God has given them in the way of ability, and they both have their own brand of it, or they both have their own flip side of the coin. So you think about how amazing Big Boy is, one of the greatest of all times, but for all these years, he's in a band with Andre 3000. You know what I'm saying? Who's just a different type of entity in the world. Or you think
Yeah.
about, you know what I'm saying? You think about how amazing Chad is from the Neptunes, and like he's incredible. He's on his
Yeah.
own, he would be a legend. And he just
Yep.
so happens to be in a band with Pharrell, who is like, you know, one of the and so one of the ways that I've always related to you is that I felt, at least from observing you with Tech, I feel a very similar thing with me and Slug. You know, or like Talib Kweli is one of the greatest. You know what I mean? Like Talib Kweli is in a lot of people's top 5, and he's not 5,
Yep.
and he deserves to be there. But the fact that Talib Kweli has to be in a universe with Yasin Bey, with Mos Def, you know what I'm
I
saying?
know.
Who's just
I
in
get it.
another category. You know what I'm saying?
We are
So
in their shadow. We can say it. You can say it.
yeah,
We're
I'm
in
just
their shadow.
yeah. So I mean, like I know what that's like for me. This like is both the beauty of like I love this person so much. No one's a bigger atmosphere fan than me. You know what I'm
For
saying?
sure.
Like I like for as much as people think they love my man, I love that dude more than and you don't know how real those lyrics are. And you don't know how amazing he is when he was on stage that night and this thing happened and he said this thing off the top of his head or whatever. You know what I mean? And there's also the being in the shadow thing, and you know, so I know what that's meant for me, and I'm
Yeah.
curious what you just feel like sharing about that.
It's a gift and a curse.
Mm-hmm.
It's like what got us to where we have been and where we are and where we are going.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also like not enough.
Mm-hmm.
Let's keep it real. It's not totally enough because you are great. That's why. So you said it, you hit it on the head, and Tech said this to me a few months ago. And I'm letting a lot of stuff out here. You said, I realized there was another Spider Man because most people would have seen us as Batman and Robin. And I was okay with that for a long time. But what Tech said is, man, I call myself the snake and the Batman. He said, but what I realized so that's my version of Batman. He said, but what I realized, Krizz, man, with you not being here, is that it wasn't Batman and Robin. There was another Batman.
Mm-hmm.
You know how like there's a dip. You know
Hope,
how
please,
like there.
can we let that breathe for a second?
Okay. Okay.
He said those words to you.
Yeah.
That's really big.
Mm-hmm.
That's really big.
He said, I realized that in your absence there was another Batman,
Mm.
and there's a huge void. You know what I'm saying? And I knew that was going to be the case, because we built this thing and now it's different.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's just different. It's not
Yeah.
bad. It's just
Yeah.
different. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And so um when you have two Batmans, two Batmans, however you see them, whatever the proper grammar is, when you have that, then there's gonna have to be some room for Batman, whichever one, to breathe. Now, I wanted to explore that.
Mm-hmm.
Who am I? What am I as Chris Calico?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I have a certain worth, and I want to go figure out what that is.
Right.
And I actually, I've never said this, I can't totally stretch my legs here. I have to go figure it out myself. I have to. I gotta see what am I?
Yeah.
Can I even survive? I was scared. I was
Yeah.
terrified.
Yeah.
Do I even survive? Do I fall off the cliff? I saw comments. If any of you guys are on here that made I saw comments that was like, man, I hope you don't fall off like such and such. Hope you don't fall off like such and such. And I was offended when I see
Yeah.
those comments. I was offended
Yeah.
at first.
Yeah.
But I thought, and I would be ready. I don't really clap back at people in comments because for what? They're speaking from a place of ignorance in my
Mm-hmm.
head when you
Mm-hmm.
make a comment about Krizz like that, because if you're watching and you're paying attention to what I've done and paying attention to my contribution to that music, then you know what I am. So you wouldn't even doubt it. I see Shannon on here, Fantastic 88, comment after comment on here. I see your comment, Shannon. She's been watching us since dang near the beginning. So somebody like that would never make a comment like that because they know what I am. They know what I can do. What I brought to the table, I can bring to my own table.
Yeah.
I heard somebody make a quote and say, man, I just want a seat at the table. Well, I did want a seat at the table forever. And then I got to the point where I want my own table.
Right.
I want to make all of the decisions. I want to make all of the money. I want to make all of the money. I don't want anybody dictating what I can do anytime, when I have to go, when I'm going to tour, how much money I can make. And any label that you're at is possibly dictating that. Not that there's some big bad monster or nothing, but it's just they're going to dictate that. And so I want to be the dictator.
Yeah.
I want to call the shots. Plus, there's other things. I needed much more time. We did 200 shows a year.
Yeah.
My children were growing up in front of my eyes.
Yes, sir.
My son is 6. My son will be 17 this year. I got a song called The Need. And I was like, my son was born on 6606, maybe a sign to get my mind back on the crucifix or get back in the church. I started talking about all of that kind of stuff. And he'll be 17 in June. You know what I mean? And so he is getting ready to be a man.
Yeah.
It is my job to usher him into manhood. I got to be here to do it.
Right.
I can still tour, but I'm not going to tour as much, and I'm going to do shows, but I can't tour as much because I have to usher him into manhood. Because what good is it for me to be this guy and touring and do all this stuff and people screaming for me, and then my son grows up and does something foolish, which he still could, but he didn't have that person there. One thing that I saw in the last 20 years doing this was that everyone's children were suffering.
Man.
They were suffering.
Yo, Bill Withers one time, Bill Withers just walked away from touring. He said, I'm not doing this. And he said the managers and the owners, their kids go to Yale, the artist kid go to jail.
Say it one more time.
The managers' kids go to Yale, the artist kids go to jail.
100%. That's how it works. That's how it works. Also, Quincy Jones told Tech, you're either going to have a successful career or successful relationship.
It's not going to be both ways, man. You got to decide.
That's what he says.
You got to be good. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I see your Quincy Jones. I like it. I beg to differ on everything. My kids are going to Yale. They're not going to jail. And I have a successful relationship. Of course, we've had our ups and downs. Of course, this woman stuck by me since she was 16. She was 16, bro. We broke up for a couple years. She stuck by me. She's 16. She's 42, 43. You feel me? You can't tell me what my life is going to be because of what happens to the masses. I dictate that. One of the things that I talk about when I go speak is I'm going to dictate that. I woke up this morning even feeling different. I was depressed and stressed yesterday. I woke up this morning feeling a lot different because of what I woke up to. It also a lot of depends on what I wake up and expose myself to. I've said things and then they came to pass. I've also doubted a lot and I thought that was going to come to me and it did not. I am favored.
Yes, sir.
I'm favored.
That's right.
I am
That's
favored.
Right. Yes.
And everybody doesn't have this opportunity to go through all of the struggles that I've gone to. Everybody doesn't have the opportunity to learn everything that I've learned in this industry. Everybody doesn't have the opportunity everybody's creative in their own way, but able to display it to the world like I've been able to do. I'm being favored,
Yeah.
and it's my responsibility to use that favoritism that I have with God's universe to help folks,
Mm-hmm.
music or talk just with my words, with communication.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I know that I'm favored to do that, and I'm also favored in a way where my woman stuck beside me.
Man.
My
Yeah,
children are
brother.
okay. My
Yeah.
children are okay. And so I'm bringing that to bring it back around. When you make a comment and you say, I hope you don't fall off like so and so that left the label. If you knew what I just told you before you made that comment, you would not make it.
That's right.
Because I know you don't know. I know you don't
Right.
know.
Right.
That's you just talking outside of your neck, as the old folks used to say.
That's right.
One of the other things I know is that Tech N9ne knows that about me.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't look at it
Mm-hmm.
like that. He never looked at
Mm-hmm.
it like, dude, you're gonna fall. He was like, if anybody can do it, it's you. Because of just how you looked at life and your the amount of talent that you have. He's like, dude, if anybody gonna do it, it's you. The most non-hater dude that I know.
Man, when so around the same time that I started to notice, I didn't see the announcement when it happened. I just could feel
Yeah.
it. I could just feel it from following you on Instagram. And I remember
Yeah.
telling my wife, I'm like, I don't think Krizz is with Strange anymore. And during
Right.
that time, I also had made the decision to go independent and to not do my future business on Rhymesayers. And I've heard you say I didn't leave. Like we need a different language than that. And that's how I feel Rhymesayers. Like I didn't leave. You don't leave. Like if you grow up in your parents' home and then eventually you go to college, you go start your career, you have your own family, you don't say like, why'd you leave your parents? It's like it was just time for me to be my own
Yeah.
person. But I noticed that when that started to happen, and it was around the same time that I did. And I know that, man,
Parallel.
yeah, man, we're just twins. Like we're just, like we're supposed to be together.
Yeah,
But
right.
man,
Right.
I know that before I told them that, I mourned and grieved like it was a death, man.
Woo! Me
Like
too, Ali.
just knowing that like these amazing nights that we've had together that make us who we are, you know what I'm saying?
Ooh.
Like all those, you think about, like I've seen you on stage at Red Rocks, and the Tech N9ne show has to stop so people can say Cali, 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 and I've been in that exact same position, standing next to my man, and the whole crowd is saying Ali. It's like the same as, you know what I'm saying? Like this whole bizarro universe or like alternative
Wow.
universe thing. And it's just
Wow,
like,
dude.
man, we might not have those nights again. Like we might not have those 10 years on a tour bus again. We might not have, you know what I'm saying? It was a really deep mourning and grieving thing for
Me
me. And
too.
I wonder, what was
Oh
that like
man,
for you?
the same thing. I'm still doing it. I
Mm-hmm.
don't talk about it. I wouldn't even ever talk about this if we weren't talking right now. In
Mm-hmm.
the way that I'm talking about it. I still do.
Mm-hmm.
I talk about this in therapy.
Mm-hmm.
This is ingrained in my DNA.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
cried and cried and cried and cried. I cried for a whole week
Yeah.
before I talked to Tech and Trav.
Yeah.
I cried for a week because I had already in Red Rock said I was coming back. And
Yeah.
then months later, I was like, I'm not trying to,
You can't.
I just can't. I
Yeah.
tried and we made this whole thing and I'm going to, I can't.
Yeah.
I have to go. I have to jump off the cliff here and see if it. I actually watched. I read a book on the plane on the way to a show called. Dang, I forgot what it is, but it was called. Maybe it's called Jumping, Making the Leap, Taking the Leap.
Mm-hmm.
And I read this book about how to mentally prepare myself to take the leap. And I brought Crystal, my wife, in years ago Well, she was already coming in to like sing background from Mackenzie, and which is Travis's daughter, and travel with her, and then she would be, when we would talk in meetings, she would be there, and this light bulb went off one day, and I was like, she needs to just manage me. Crystal was running a daycare with 200 kids in it, and the families only felt safe when she was there because she left and came back. Same thing with Strange.
Yeah.
There's a daycare in Kansas City, and she was really tight with the owner of the daycare. And anytime Crystal would leave, all of the kids, their enrollment would go way down. So the lady was just paying for the payroll and stuff out of her pocket. She wasn't making a profit. She only had maybe 60, 70 kids in this daycare, and 200 makes it thrive. 70 kids makes it fail. Crystal left, and she came back because the lady promised us ownership and all of this stuff. And then it didn't end up working out. And Crystal was there, and I was like, yeah, you can't do it. She was stressed out. You can't do this. She went and ran another basketball organization for a lady, turned her business around too, to where they were both very profitable businesses. And I was pondering taking the leap of faith and betting on myself. And I said, you need to leave there. You won't work for anybody else anymore. You never work for anybody else. We're going to turn us around. She actually came up with the whole Crystal. It's a lot of stuff getting revealed here. Crystal is the one that said, here's what we're going to do. We'll start our own label. We'll do this. You said that you want me to turn our finances around. Here's what we do. We do this, 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 this. Okay. I want you to do a show. The show is going to be called da 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 da, and you're going to announce to the fans that you're leaving and doing like a going away party, a whole concert. This is during COVID. Travis built this stage for us to do live stream shows because we couldn't go anywhere and do them. Dude, I'm shaking. I'm like shaking talking about
I
this.
appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you, man.
But she said, you do the show. Travis was like, well, that sounds like a funeral. It needs to be a going away party. She came up with the name. Okay, I got it. It's called The Reveal. She tells me this, and we go back and talk to him. The show's called The Reveal, and then I came up with how it would look. It's going to look like half documentary, half performance. So you'll see, and so I shot a whole documentary for it. We used some old footage. I shot a documentary. We performed it. You can see it on YouTube even now. So we did the Reveal show, and I revealed exactly what was going on. We made sure our affairs were in order before I had business licenses. It was one of the things that when I saw people leaving Strange, they kind of just went and did shows, just kind of did. And I'm not, no shade to them, but they were just kind of continuing on being an artist, where we got all of our affairs in order. I got an LLC. I actually started a business. I started an S Corp, and the corporation owns this and this business owns that one, like everything. We got everything together.
When the PPP loan hustle, it was an actual
it was an actual business.
Real business. That's right.
Nah, it wasn't a hustle. Nah, we actually started a business. I actually even started something that nobody else. I started a trucking company since then. We have a trucking company where we are would deliver Amazon. It's dedicated Amazon freight.
Incredible.
So I knew to get those things in order before deciding to leave. We said we wouldn't use leave. Leave is what happened, but you can either have the positive or negative energy. You grow up, you do depart from your parents' home, but you're going on, you're upgrading your life. You're going on. It's the natural progression of life.
Right.
That's how I had to see this
You're
thing.
transitioning into the next part of your journey.
You are, man. And that's exactly what I was doing, is transitioning into the next part of my life.
And it's not done without arguments. Like if you think about when, like you're comfortable in your parents' house, and after a while you realize, I don't want to do the dishes like this. I don't want to come home at this time. I don't want to. So there it's not without tension, because otherwise it's comfortable. You wouldn't, it's not without, but it doesn't mean that there's anything other than love. It's just like, this is something that you all built, and you helped also to build me. But in order for me to completely spread my wings and continue on my journey. It's time for me to now build something.
Yeah, it doesn't come without tension. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
But all of those things are necessary to grow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's necessary to grow, man, and that's what I'm doing. I'm even entering into a new genre of music this year. I do a lot of different genres. I've written rock, I've written country, I've of course hip hop artists, R&B, gospel music, traditional Christian, black gospel music. Um, I've done all of these different things, so I can kind of go into whatever genre I want to. Rock, of
Mm-hmm.
course, metal. And I have been getting contacted by a few country artists, country rap artists, and to do features. And I was doing them and I was like, man, they was like, dude, you really sound good on these songs. Man, you should try your hand at that. You do all kind of different genres anyway. You should
Yeah.
try out country music. And so I just been getting a lot of people. Once I did a couple, what happened is I did a feature for a guy named Demon Jones. That's what kicked it all
Okay.
off. I did a
Okay.
country song a long time ago called WANS. WANS is an acronym, means we all need sex. I did this country song a long time ago. It's on Son of Sam, my album Son of Sam.
Uh,
Um, and then I did a feature with Demon Jones. As I was departing, right before I made my transition from into Earhouse, and as a matter of fact, I recorded the feature at Strange Music for Demon Jones. Well,
mm,
Demon is a guy who was doing it himself and seems very successful. And so, right when decided I was going to step out on my own, man, he really gave me a lot of game. I mean, a
mm.
lot of game. And you got other guys that reached out to me and put their arms around me. Tom McDonald, who's super controversial, as you know, if you know who that is. Chris Webby, futuristic. Murs even. You know what I'm saying? All these guys that are doing it independently reached out and gave me the way that they did it. And so
Mm.
I put all of that into one ball, like, okay, so I got everybody's take on how to do it independently. I'm gonna take a little from this, a little from this, a little from this way, and then I'm gonna go this way with it. This is how I'm gonna march forward. Damon and Futuristic, I would say, probably gave me a lot. Now, everybody, for real, I can't discount the game Chris Webby gave me. All
Mm.
of these guys are like monsters,
Okay.
independently. But the Demon Jones feature started having other country artists reach out to me. And
Man,
I
that world
noticed that
is really real.
I felt like I sounded good on it and it made me feel really good. That's the
Mm.
biggest thing, man. When I started doing it, I felt so good doing that music. And, Kansas City is one of these cities where it's a big city, but it's also like country and
Right.
city. It's like this mixture. You know what I mean? And so it felt like a very natural place for me to go. And so I started doing it. I recorded the songs that I've done so far all on Twitch right here
Dope.
and let my fans see me make this transition. And it's not that I won't do any other music, ever again, any other type of music ever again, but I'm like, I want to try my hand. And what type of country music will I do? And the type of
Yeah.
country music that I do, I fuse it. It's amazing. It's actually amazing to me. I hope
Man.
everybody else feels like it's amazing, but it feels really big and epic, and I can't wait to do more of it this year.
Man, we did one time we played a festival in maybe South Dakota, out in the middle of nowhere, and we were opening for Nelly. Or like we were playing right before Nelly. Like Nelly was headlining,
Yep.
I was right before Nelly. And
Right.
so I'm get out there and I'm like, I look into the audience and like, not only is it very like small town, like rural white audience, I mean, these people are in their 50s. And I'm like, man, I'm gonna have a hard time with this audience. And I'm like, man, I wonder what Nelly is gonna do when he comes out here. And so we went out and did our thing, and I had to really win them over. Like it was not easy to do. I had to really do
Yeah.
all the tricks, all the everything. And we finally got them at the end, and it was dope. And then Nelly came on, and first of all, him and his DJ and Ali from his crew were all dressed in like Run DMC. And they did their set like a Run DMC set. Like it was very obvious, like that was the inspiration for the set. Killed it. super hip hop set, amazing performer. I forget sometimes like some of these people that have these like really all these like legitimate hit records. But man, he
Yes,
went
he
in it, and I
definitely does.
knew that Nelly had some country like stuff. Man, so he came out and did a few of his, country grammar and all this stuff, the things I knew. But then he went into he did probably 45 minutes of just straight country music. The drums were 808s, the guitar was country. It was him doing his
Yep,
thing, and I realized like, oh, these people came specifically for that.
they did.
And it showed me that like, this whole
I
world.
just had the exact same experience. I just had this experience it wasn't 2 months ago.
Mm,
I just did a show with him in Grand Junction, Colorado. Same
mm,
thing. Maybe it was
mm.
3 months ago. I don't know exactly when it was. Had the same experience. I really had to work to win that audience. It was a lot of them
Yeah.
there. Same exact experience though, man.
I mean, it's
And
like being at a
it,
Wu Tang show or like a MF Doom show where they're like, we're here for one thing that this guy does. And whoever
yep.
before him is just like, you're just filler. And you have to show them like, no, you can like me too. But man,
Yeah.
I already know, man. I already know your voice and your sentiment and the musicality that you have, and also the humor that you have. That's a really difficult thing in hip hop to really be able to capture being soulful and being humorous at the same time. And it's one of the things that
Yes.
you've always been able to do very naturally. And so,
Yeah.
man, I already know, man, that will be a huge new world for you that doesn't negate or cut or close any of the other doors.
Right. No, it's not to close any other doors. It still feels like me. Everything I do still feels like me.
Mhm.
And so I'm just having tons of fun with it. And the only thing we haven't done in our parallel universe is do a song together. We need to do a song together.
Man, I would do an
And
album, a tour,
yeah,
and
dude.
I was even thinking so much of your story reminds me also of Krondon. And I think that
Crondon, yeah. I know
like
Crondon.
like our voices together with Krondon would be really dope, man. If
I've never heard any music with Crondon. I just meet Crondon I met him at the same festivals that I saw you at. And then I
okay.
saw him I was watching a Netflix DC comic show. Like he's like the villain on this
You know what's a
DC or
trip?
Marvel
Yeah.
Universe show.
Black
He's the
Lightning.
I saw he's Black Lightning. Yeah, I saw he's like
So,
he's the
you
villain
know
on there.
what's a trip is that when they were making that show, they actually called Sadiq, who's the head of Rhymesayers, and they were like,
Mhm.
"Hey, we want Brother Ali because we're doing this all black." This is before Black Panther came out, so it was like a new idea. We're doing this all black TV show, like superhero thing. We want Brother Ali to come read for the villain because we want to. And Sadiq was like, "Oh, it's a common misconception. Brother Ali's actually not black," but he was at Evidence's crib and Krondon was there, and he was like, "But I know who you should talk to." And I don't know if he handed him the phone or if he just put them in touch with each other or whatever. But that's how Krondon. I mean, he got the role because he's ill. I mean, he's dope. You know what I mean? But that was the initial
Yeah.
contact.
Yeah, I know we know of each other, but I don't know him, that well. We haven't ever had a long conversation just high and by or in passing, you
Man,
know what I mean? But
he's the first albino I ever saw drive a car. Like he came to one of my shows one time in LA and picked me up. And I got in the car
Mhm.
and sat and watched Krondon drive a car. It was like the day Obama got elected or something. I was like, man.
Ah, right. Because one of the things that we hadn't touched on yet is that how the loss of pigment affects your eyesight.
Yeah.
And I believe it's because it's affecting your nervous system because your eyes are part of your nervous system.
Mm, mm, mm.
And it has affected my vision my whole life since I was like 8 years old.
Mm,
So I typically have on glasses. Even when I have on sunglasses, they're prescription.
mhm.
My sunglasses are prescription sunglasses because I have been squinting and having vision issues, which I still have vision issues like every day. My vision goes like blurry and all kind of other stuff. So, um, yeah, I don't know people. I don't know. Most of the albino people that I know are in the entertainment business. Matter of fact, I just did a video last week with Odd Squad family
Okay.
and Snowman. Snowman is the albino guy. And
Man,
he was
their
talking
crew,
about vision issues.
their crew bombs my comment section on every episode of this podcast. You got to interview the Odd Squad family. You got to interview the Odd Squad family.
You should.
I just
You
don't know them
should.
yet. We just haven't
You
connected yet.
should. I would actually really strongly suggest for you to talk to them. I think it would be a very, very interesting podcast.
Man, I'm gonna definitely do that. You know, the last time we saw each other, I think, was when we were in Europe. We were on the festival circuit. It was like one of the last years, I think the last year that happened before the pandemic. And so we were seeing y'all and Pharoah Monch, and Big Daddy Kane was out there. And so, man, we did Hip Hop Camp, which for people who know is the biggest hip hop festival in the world. And y'all were headlining on the main stage, and I was headlining on the second stage. But for whatever reason, normally they shut the second stage down before the main stage. For whatever reason, they had me playing directly after y'all, like 15 minutes after y'all, on the smaller stage.
Mm-hmm.
And so just as we're about, and I'm thinking to myself, like, dude, everybody's gonna be over there watching Tech and Krizz. Nobody's gonna come out, like, this is gonna be difficult to do. You know what I mean? Because it's already 3 o'clock in the morning or something. These people been, you know, and I wasn't feeling super great about it. Also, I don't feel like I was feeling particularly, you know, some days you just particularly fat. You're just like, man, I'm fat, but like I am extra fat today. And I feel like everybody's gonna know. And like, I'm just like, oh man, all right. And so literally 15 minutes after y'all get on stage, me and my DJ are about to go on the little stage, and you and Tech pulled up in a golf cart, sweating all the way through your clothes because you all jumped off stage and must have had a golf cart waiting and rushed over there just so that I would see you, and so that you all, like, y'all both got off, gave me the sweaty rapper hug, like, and said, man, we're here for you. And just, you know, the fans don't know that. Like, there wasn't somebody there filming that so you could show on Instagram the support that you give to the somebody that's playing the smaller stage. You know what I mean? Like, that's not for any, that is a sincere thing from the heart. You know what I mean? Just to show another, you know, another artist out here trying to do our thing, that, hey man, we're here for you and we're gonna watch you. And also the speed that it took to get over there, because you knew that once I got on stage, even if you were on side stage, I can't see side stage, but like, you all made it there to make sure that I knew that you were physically there. And I've had every experience that I've had with y'all has been that way, man. But that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And you've been so generous with your time, not only today, but with yourself and with your spirit and with your story and with your family and with all of your challenges, man. I know that the people that tell you that they didn't commit suicide because of your witness and your work and like just you being as real as you are, like, I know how true that is, and I know what it means to the world. I know what it means to me, man. And I just really appreciate connecting with you, but it's enough for me just knowing that you're in the world being you. Wow. And when I hear you make songs like Borrowed Time, and, you know, I know that the depression struggle is real, the suicidality is real. My wife is a therapist that works on those issues particularly. And man, the world is a much, much brighter place that makes sense to us with you here. And so, man, we need you to have a long life, man. And we need to see what the next 10 chapters look like. And because all of the chapters up till now mean so much to me. Yeah. And I really love you. I really appreciate you.
Man, I love you back, man. I thank you so much, man. I could do this for 5 more hours, to tell you the truth.
Well, I mean, let's do it. Let's do it again and again.
Yeah, man. We'll do this again, man. I really appreciate you having me, brother.
No, I appreciate you so much, man. And please tell Miss Crystal I said thank you so much.
I will.
Love you, brother.
Man, I love you back, man. Appreciate your time, man. Brother Ali.
Talk at you soon.
All right, man. Peace.
Special thanks to my brother Chris Calico for being so generous with his time and with his stories and with his insight and his wisdom, his experience, and really just with himself. Like, these people that come on this show, like, they really give us themselves, and I couldn't be more grateful. If you go to brotherali.com in the section called Join, you can hear the second part of this conversation, which is like an intimate family chat with me and Krizz and his amazing wife, Crystal. We talk about what it means to be doing this as families, as partners, what it means to be launching businesses of our own in this moment. You know what I'm saying? Looking forward to our best days still being to come, even though we're at this juncture of life trying to navigate being independent artists. We also talk a lot about mental health and about the challenges and the struggles and the hope. It's a really funny, just kind of really family kind of vibe. The whole vibe changed as soon as Miss Crystal sat down and started chopping it up with us. So go to brotherali.com/join, get down with the caravan so you can connect more, not only with us, but with the other people that are on this journey with us. Travelers Podcast is produced by Brendan Kelly, aka BK1. We're sponsored, as always, by the Zakat Foundation and by BetterHelp online therapy platform. Very grateful to them. Special thanks to Amna Mirza, to Mansoor Panawala, to Last Word, my great DJ that helps also with a lot of the presentation of the show with regard to some of the visual graphic design and things like that. Mark from Medina Hip Hop did the logo, the stamp logo. My man Ant from Atmosphere did the music. This is the beat for the song called The Travelers, and shout out to him for letting us use the instrumental as the theme song for this show. And then shout out to all the people that listen to this show and check in with me and let me know that they're listening. Talking about Aida Rashid and Shane Atkinson and Rami Neshashibi and Sage Francis and the people that I hear from on a regular basis that are listening to this show. Shout out to my man Ahmed Fahmi. You know what I'm saying? The people that are listening and checking in, we appreciate all of you very much. Travelers Podcast is a presentation of Travelers Media, and we wish you well. We send you all the love in the world. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.